Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Emily Knits podcast. This is, I think, episode 6 of the podcast. I really should double check the number before I start filming, but here we are. And yeah, it is currently, hello? We've got a guest, we've got 2 guests actually today. Proof that they are not one and the same dog, they just don't often both appear at the same time. We've got a traditional format podcast today. I've got a couple of half-finished objects to talk about. I've got some whips to talk about, and we have a little bit of a life update at the end. I also have some acquisitions that I've just realised I've completely forgotten to bring down, so I'll probably go get them at some point, or I'll put pictures in to talk about. And yeah, let's jump into it. So before I jump into it talking about what I'm wearing, one quick announcement, sort of reminder up front. On the last episode, or the last couple of episodes, I've been running a giveaway for the Irene sweater pattern by Journey Through Yarn, which was a pattern that I test knit for her, and she'd kindly gifted a second copy of the pattern. On last week's episode, I announced the winner. All you had to do was like and comment on the previous episode to be in with a chance of winning. I announced the winner on the last week's episode, but that person hasn't yet reached out to me. So if you entered that and you haven't watched last week's episode or the last podcast episode, go back and watch that. And if it is you, reach out to me and let me know. What I will do is I'll give it another sort of week or so until I'm filming the next video. And if I've not heard back by that point, I will draw another winner and I'll announce that on the next podcast. But I think it's been a couple of weeks since I drew that. So yeah, I'll give it another week. All that to say, yeah, if you entered that and you haven't gone and checked if it was you, go back and watch the last episode and maybe you will win a prize. So with that out of the way, let's get into the good stuff. The first thing to talk about is what I'm wearing. This, I'm sure, needs absolutely no introduction. If you are a knitter that's been in the community for any sort of length of time, you will have heard of this pattern, I'm certain. This is the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. This pattern is constantly in the Is it hot right now on Ravelry? Every time I go and look on there, which I do from time to time like to do because I like to see what new patterns have come out that I might have missed and I've not seen before. Every time I go look on there, it is in the hot right now. So, and I would say with good reason, honestly. So I knit this about a year and a half ago, something like that. This was my second one of these that I knit. So this was originally one of the very first garments that I ever knit. This wasn't, but the other version was, because it seemed simple, although in hindsight, looking at all the sort of lace and stuff on the yoke, I don't know why I thought it was simple, but apparently I did. And I originally knit it with a couple of strands of really nice hand-dyed fingering weight that my other half had got me. So these were the two like the first ever hand-dyed luxury yarn I'd ever had was this stuff that Christian had got me for birthday or Christmas a few years back. And it is a really versatile pattern, and I've seen people knit it with a single strand of fingering, with a single strand of mohair. I didn't like the gauge with a single strand of fingering, so I was holding these 2 skeins together, which meant that because I only had 2 skeins, it meant that I had the length of 1 skein, if that makes sense, because I was holding them together. So what I came out with was a beautiful but extremely cropped ranunculus, like it just sit under my boobs, which is, it's fine for some people, but it's not something that I would wear, unfortunately. So I kept it for a little bit because I didn't want to undo all that work, and it was the first garment that I'd knit. And yeah, in the end, I frogged it back. I frogged it back, and I've used that yarn for something else since. But I did, about a year ago, like I said, I decided to re-knit this because I still had the pattern. And I'm really glad I did. So the first time I'd knit it, the pattern's had an update since, and I'm pretty certain the first time that I knit it, it just came in 2 sizes. It had a massive amount of recommended ease, like maybe like even 15 inches or something silly. It's not silly, something really, really large. And it was either if you were up to a certain bust size, you were recommended to knit the smaller size, and then if you were above that, you were recommended to knit the bigger size because you had then much more ease. And I remember I knit the smaller size, which gave me a lot less positive ease because that's what I wanted. But when I went back to knit it the second time, it had an update, and it now has sizes in there. It now has, I think, numbered sizes. So it's more inclusive in that you can pick a size that actually suits you. And I picked a size, I can't remember what size I picked because I didn't write it down in Ravelry, because of course I didn't. But I picked a size that gave me much less positive ease than recommended. I do still have positive ease. I've probably got maybe about 4 inches actually. I've got quite a lot there, but it is less than the pattern recommends. And I really, really like how this fits. So I love that they did that update so that you can pick, okay, I want a tighter fit in, I want a looser fit in. And I think that's one of the reasons that this is always in the hot right now, is that it's so versatile. It's knit on, I think, 6mm needles. It's quite large needles, so it's quite versatile in terms of weight. You could make this with Aran weight and make a much thicker sweater. This is a DK weight that I'm going to talk about in a minute. You could make it with a single strand of lace weight or fingering weight. You could change your gauge, you can edit the lace pattern, but it's a really, really versatile pattern. And I knit this in a yarn from Hobbycraft. Now, they still do this blend on the website, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't called this, so I don't know if it's exactly the same what they do now. But it was a 50% cotton and 50% acrylic blend in the shade Silver, I'm pretty certain it was called. They still do that blend on their website. It's now called, seriously, Hobbycraft, if you're watching this, why would you be watching this? But hire someone to do your names better, mate, please. It's really not good. This is called Cotton Blend Plain. What an inspirational name. Like, come on, give it something a bit more than that. Cotton Blend Plain. But it's, I don't remember it being called that, and the ball band looks different, but it is definitely the same brand. Their Knitcraft, I think it's called, is the brand that they do themselves, and it is a 50% cotton and acrylic blend that they still do. It comes in 14 colours. It's a DK weight, like I said, and you get 215 metres per 100 grams, and it's £3.50 per 100 grams. So it's a relatively budget-friendly pattern. I think I maybe used 3 balls of yarn on this. I've knit it longer. I'll pop in some B-roll so you can see, but this hits at sort of t-shirt length for me. It's not a cropped pattern at all. I've made it longer. And I did the sleeves slightly different as well. So there's a couple of options for sleeves in the pattern. I think there's long length, maybe 3/4 length, and short. Obviously, again, it's massively versatile, but the short length, basically, you split for sleeves and you bind off when you split for sleeves, and that's the short that they recommend in the pattern. I didn't do that. I went back in and picked up, and I knit only about 10 rounds. And then I did a little bit of ribbon and I bound off. But I really like the sort of length that I get. It is a proper, like, t-shirt fit on me. And the reason I'm wearing this is because we've had a nice little burst of sunshine in the UK recently. We've had some nice weather. We finally got spring. I've just realised I made myself a coffee and I left it over there. Be right back. Okay, we're back with coffee. I have a problem with coffee. I'm under no illusions. I'm happy with it. It's fine. It can be the hottest day of the year and I'll have a coffee. Whether it's iced or warm, I will have a coffee. Okay, so now we've got that. What was I talking about? I'm pretty certain I was talking about the Hobbycraft. Yeah, I was talking about the modifications I'd made, wasn't I? So I'd lengthened the sleeves, I'd lengthened the body. And yeah, the reason, the weather, there we go. Here's the tangent that Emily was on. The reason I was talking about this and the reason I'm wearing this is because it's nice weather, and that has actually influenced quite a lot of the whips that I've focused on this week, because this is one of only 2 summer knits that I actually have, and the other one is a tank that I test knit last year, which is lovely. It's really beautiful, but it was top up, bottom up, and I've made it a bit too short, unfortunately. I could go back and lengthen it, but it's bottom up, so to add length I'm going to have to do quite a lot of work, and I don't like it enough to do that. I love the pattern. My problem was my yarn choice, so I chose a yarn that is technically a DK weight. I think it's probably more like a sport weight, but the pattern's recommended for 4-ply yarn, and whilst I got gauge absolutely fine, it's made quite a dense, heavy top, which for a tank top, it's not what you want. So I think I will probably reknit that probably at some point this year, but in a much more sensible yarn. So that has led me to lead into quite a lot of summer knits this year. We will talk about some finished objects first, because what I also grabbed whilst I was getting my coffee was a couple of long-standing whips that I finished, which you will have seen on my, one of which at least you will have seen on my pattern roundup whip parade, which was the first video I ever did on this channel. And then I've got a couple of half finished objects to talk about as well, but then we will talk about the whips, all 3 of which are much more summer related patterns. So let's start going through it. So the first long-standing WIP that I've finished, I'm going to preface this by saying this is going to be the episode where Emily hasn't woven any of her ends in. They all need ends weaving in. It's my least favourite thing about knitting. And the number of times that I will say a pattern is finished and it will sit there for ages. In fact, I think even, is it on the back? I'm sure this has got somewhere, well, if I can't find it, that means, yeah, there. I think even this has got, yeah. And I tell myself I'm keeping that one because that shows me which one's the back, front and back, but I'm keeping it because I'm too lazy to weave the ends in. So this is going to be the episode with all the ends that need weaving in. Everything I'm going to show you has ends that need to be woven in. But yeah, moving into the WIPs that are longer standing that I've finished. I thought the ends are really bad. So this first one hasn't been that long standing for that long. So I test knit this design back in January, I think it was, for Lauren of work.knits. This is the Melange Collar. I test knit this originally in, I think it was Drops Alaska. No, Lima. I'll put it on screen. You can go back to one of my previous podcast episodes where I talked about this, and I knit it in like a teal blue colour, and I finished it and I really enjoyed knitting it. So I decided I was going to use some scrap yarns that were left over, or some scraps of yarn that were left over from knitting a cardigan, a Ccell coat for my other half, to make this, and I'm really pleased with it actually. I got about 3/4 of the way through and I just didn't finish the last bit, so it didn't take me that long to work up. Let me show you it a bit closer up. And I will put it on briefly to show you. It didn't stay on long because it's warm today. So this was knit in leftover Pilcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the shade Oatmeal. I knit his Ccell coat, which is a colourwork coat, in Oatmeal and Nougat, and I didn't have much of the Nougat left, but I had a bit of the Oatmeal left. So this is what it looks like. It's one of those little sort of dicky cowl collar type things. I use these quite a lot in the winter because we go on dog walks twice a day, and if it's quite often, because I'm bigger, because I'm plus size, I get warm quite easily, and quite often it is cold enough to need something, particularly around my neck where I don't zip my coat up all the way because I don't like feeling restricted around there. But also it's, once I start walking, I'm too warm for a full jumper. So these work perfectly. So yeah, I have some other yarn. I've got some, it was in the way of the drawer. Can I find it? Yes, I can. I've got some Kate Davies Aired Tier, which is it's the recommended yarn in the pattern, and I'm sure it's a wool alpaca blend, so it's a really interesting blend. I've got some of this to make another one. I've got some Natura Gilead in stash to make another one. Excuse the drawer. Oops. I think these would make really nice gifts, but also they're very utilitarian for me. This is a very different one to the first one. So the first one was Drops, whatever it was that I've put on screen, but it's a wool alpaca blend again. So it's much more luxurious and drapey and fluffy. This is, I still find this wool really, really soft. Let me drop you down a bit so you can see it. I still find this really, really soft, but this is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it is much more rustic. I wouldn't say it's rustic, but it's more rustic than the other one. And it's a bit more neutral. The other one was in a really deep teal colour. And yeah, it just sits really nicely. It's got lovely twisted rib details, and it's all knit on 5mm needles. Lauren's patterns, quite often she doesn't change needle sizes for ribbing, which I didn't know was really possible until knitting some of Lauren's patterns, and I love it because it means there's less needle management. So this is finished. I think the recommended amount of yarn in the pattern is like 250 or 300 metres, but both of them that I've made have used less than 200. So they're really good stash busters. And yeah, I'm very pleased to have had this off the needles. This has been on the needles since January, so very pleased to have got rid of that. That sounds horrible. The next one is another work.knits pattern. I promise her patterns are great. I'm just terrible. This is another one that I test knit for her. And there was particular areas where I joined the test knit quite late, and there was particular areas where she needed assistance. So we focused on that, and then that was what she needed to be able to release the pattern. So I didn't finish the rest of it. So this is the From Farm to City shawl. I always say that wrong. I get the stitch in the wrong place. Try not to do that on the internet. And I knit this in, I think it's Drops, oh for God's sake, it's going to be one of them days when I can't remember the names. I think it's Drops Lima in the shade Chalk for the sort of central spine of the shawl. And then this is some hand-dyed DK weight from Floof Fibres on Etsy, and the shade is, I think it's Miriam. I'll put the spelling on screen because I'm not really sure how, I know how to spell it, just I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So this is you have a central cabled spine, and then you pick up and knit these really big, long, quite thin wings at the end. And what I'd done with this is I'd done all of the knitting. It just needed an applied I-cord around the edge. I was showing you the back because it's not very neat. It just needed an applied I-cord around the edge, and I hadn't got around to doing it. So I finally got around to doing that. A little bit frustratingly, it is still rolling. And I think that's me, not the pattern, but I have blocked this. I've tried to pin it out to dry. I have tried to steam it. Yeah, it's still rolling. So I've just kind of resigned myself to the fact that it rolls and it's fine. But it's a lovely little shawl. I did think about gifting this to my mum, but I don't know with the rolling if it feels like a bit of a cop-out. But you could wear this. I'm going to look really strange now with a shawl and a summer top. But yeah, it fits really nicely in sort of that bit of your neck. And yeah, is a really, really nice little addition. I love this hand-dyed yarn. If I just pull it up close and show it. It's got some really beautiful purples and blues and dark blues, and there's some browny goldy colours in it. And the yarn is stunning. I've got some of this left. I've got quite a bit of the blue hand-dyed left, and I'm considering, I'm pretty much set actually, on making some DK weight socks with it. Probably with some other DK weight as like a contrast, maybe making some colour work or something to use those last bits up. But this has been a long-standing work. This probably is best part of a year. So this felt good again to get it off the needles. Moving into more exciting stuff. We have a couple of half-finished objects, one of which you've seen, one of which you haven't. We will go into the one you haven't seen first. So I spoke last episode about test knitting and about guilt around test knitting, and I'm still sticking with that, not signing up for any others. I've been quite proud of myself because there have been a few that I've been tempted to sign up for because I get the dopamine. I don't know if anybody else does this. For me, the dopamine in that comes from that application and getting accepted and being a part of that community. So I see things come in and I'm like, oh, I want to help, I want to knit that, that would be great to knit that. And sometimes I have to really talk myself out of it, and I have to remind myself, do you even actually want that thing? It's really daft, isn't it? But I mentioned briefly in that last episode that there was a couple of test knits that I'd signed up for but I hadn't yet started on because they had quite long deadlines or they were going to be relatively quick patterns. And this is one of them, and I've cast on and I've finished the test knit because it was quick and it was very, very joyful. So this is gorgeous. This is the As Yet Unnamed. In fact, I'm just going to shut up and let you look at this for a minute. This is the As Yet Unnamed Wavy Sock test knit for Hannah Knotwell of Yarnia Designs. There is a theme with my test knits when do I not? I tend to have certain designers that I really like to test for again and again. Work.knits is one of them. Who else is there? Celine Phaeton. I think I'm on my third test knit for her. Iris Hardage of Iris Makes. Sophie of the Knit Pearl Girl. And Hannah is one of them. So this is my third test for Hannah. My first ever sweater that I knit was the fractal sweater test for her. I really threw myself in at the deep end. It was a fingering weight mosaic colour work sweater. Having never knit a sweater before, but it worked out, and here we are. And I've since test knit the Forester shawl for her, which I take into the office with me quite often and goes around my shoulders. I really, really liked that. And this is my third test knit for her. So as I said, As Yet Unnamed Wavy Socks. They are a really fun pattern, which is made up of a 4-round lace repeat and then a 4-round garter stitch repeat. Hannah's sample and a lot of the other testers have done it in much more cohesive and thought out colours than me. But I just wanted to do it with brights and with fun and with scraps. So these are all from stash. None of this has been purchased, which I'm very pleased with. I have used this sort of grey, which for a solid couple of days of working on this, I would have told you was cream, until I realised that I was like, this doesn't look very cream. Why does it not? I was getting unhappy with it, thinking it's a really off white or something's wrong with it. And I realised, well, yeah, it is, because it's grey. I mean, if you look, it's grey. Anyway, it's a leftover of some woolly knit sock yarn that I had in my stash. The bright green at the top, this pink, and this purple in the middle, which actually isn't showing up very well on camera, but is a really nice lilac-y purple, are all from a mystery mini skein set from Cheshire Yarns hand dyed. This pinky colour, this green, yeah, those two are from Ruffles Crochet Crafts, or Ruffles Crochet Creations on Etsy. She does some fantastic mini skeins. And then this darker blue and this red are some hand dyed that my other half got me for Christmas a couple of years back from an Etsy dyer whose name I can't remember, but I've never really known what to do with them. So everything was from stash. These are really good stash busters, really, really good. Each of these stripes uses, I think, about 2 or 3 grams of yarn. It's not much at all. I knit the large 72 stitches, and I really flew through these. So let me put it down because I'm getting fed up of holding it up. I cast these on the Sunday when we got the pattern and I chose my yarn and everything. I cast them on the Sunday evening. I did down to about there on the first night. And I'd finished them by the Friday, which is quick anyway for me, because that's it's considerably less than a week. But I mentioned in my last episode again that I was going to be travelling for work. So there was about 48 hours in there. In fact, there was just shy of 48 hours where there was absolutely zero knitting, because I didn't take anything with me. I didn't take any knitting with me. I was travelling very light for work and also just didn't have time. So this is basically Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So 4 days worth of knitting. And yeah, I can't remember if I've mentioned in previous episodes, but I've got big feet. I've got size 9 feet. So these are not small socks. You know, these are quite considerably large socks. And I still managed to finish them in 4 days. Well, finish one sock. I need to cast on and do the other one. I just haven't got around to it yet because I've got other things that I'm working on, but I will. I'm going to slightly change a couple of things for the next sock. Nothing to do with the pattern. The pattern worked out really, really well, and I really like it. I would, maybe personal preference, if I was going to do them again, I would do something different than a 2x2 rib at the top, but that's just personal preference. I quite like a 1x1 twisted rib, but that's just entirely personal preference. And I think I would do the toe slightly differently, actually. So without giving any numbers away, the way that I do my toe normally, I got my instructions for a vanilla sock from the Crazy Sock Lady's vanilla sock patterns, and the way that she does a toe is that you decrease every other round. You start doing your toe and you decrease every other round for however many rounds until you get down to like 18 stitches, and then you start decreasing every round until you get down to 8. And that's what I've always done, and that seems to fit my feet really well. I've just sort of fluked on the fact that that fits well the first time I've tried it. This has you do the every other round all the way until a different number at the end, and I'm not going to give the numbers away because obviously it's paid for pattern. But it doesn't fit my foot quite as well, the toe. There isn't much in it, but I would if I was going to do it again. That's the joy about socks, though. You can tweak it. If you like a particular heel, you could put a different heel in here. If you like a different toe, you could put a different toe in here. So what I'm gonna do differently on the second sock is none of that. I'm gonna do it exactly to the same as I've done it because I want them to mostly match. What I will do is, if I show you this side, you can't really see very well, but yeah, you can in some of them. There's a jog because this is the beginning of round. So when I come to do the second sock, I will make sure the placement of my heel is such that the jog goes on the other side, so that when I wear them, I've got a jog here and a jog on this side, and they can be on the insides. And from the outside of my feet, they look fine. That may not have made any sense. It sort of did in my head, but it might not have done in reality. The other thing I think I'm going to do differently is, obviously I've started at the green, I faded into the pink and the red, and then I've come back to the green and I've started again. I think I'm going to flip the colours because I think I'm going to make them sisters, not twins. So I think I'm going to start with the red, come down into the pinks and then to the green and back out into the pinks, just to really highlight these pinks because they're gorgeous and to make it a bit different. These, like I say, they flew off the needles, but the test knit doesn't actually finish until the 23rd of May and it's the 11th when I'm filming this. So these were so joyful and they took a lot of my knitting time this week because I just didn't want to put these down. What is that? Sorry, there was a creepy crawly on my book and we're getting to tick season now, which the dogs do tend to get ticks on them. So I'm very, very, cautious of any creepy crawlies that come anywhere near me. So these are going to be released probably late May, early June. I would highly recommend them. You could use them completely, you could do it completely scrappy like I have. You could do a much more cohesive. A lot of people have done, maybe 3 or 4 colours and repeated them. You could even do 2 colours. You could do 1 colour and then a contrast colour and have a very, very sort of monochromatic, not monochromatic is it, but you could have a really sort of cohesive sock and very fun pattern, very well written. Yeah, really, really recommend. Hannah's got some lovely sock patterns actually. This is the first one of her socks I've knit, but I very much enjoyed it and I might well knit some of hers in future. So this is the first half finished object, and just for laughs, because I need to take it off the blocker anyway to put something else on, I said about ends that need weaving in. I haven't woven in any of my ends. I really should have done whilst I was going, but we're not going to talk about that. So the second half finished object I have, whilst I put it on the sock blocker, you have seen. So I'd started this last time, and when I'd finished that first sock, I really wanted to work on this sock and get this sock finished as well. So this is beautiful on camera. This is my first finished Slip It Simple sock. I've written it down this time because I couldn't remember the name last time, by Christine Long Derks on Ravelry. This is a completely free pattern on Ravelry, and it involves these slipped stitches all the way down the foot, which just give it a bit more interest than a plain vanilla sock. Again, ends not woven in, and I love how these have turned out. I did edit the pattern slightly. I did a 1x1 twisted rib at the top. I've used the leg pattern and the foot pattern as normal. I didn't even read the instructions for the toe. I did the toe that I like with the decrease into 18 stitches and the decrease into 8. And actually, after the heel, I stopped looking at the pattern because I just did it how I liked it. This is a sock set from Dystopic Fibres. This is, I think it was a Christmas colourway. This was called Winter Mint. I bought this from a little yarn shop in Galashiels over Christmas when we were up there. And it has this lovely neon tonal, neon-y, bright, certainly tonal green. And then the main is all this sort of greens and browns and blues and cool minty colours in the main. It's called Winter Mint or Winter Mint Chocolate, I think might be the full name. I've really enjoyed working with this yarn. It's really nice quality yarn. It blocked beautifully. It's 75% merino, 25% nylon base, but there's something about it. It's very plump, it's very squishy, it's very, very soft, and it feels really luxurious. So, as I said last time, it will depend on how it wears, but currently really highly recommend this. I think that's all there is to say about this really. The sock set was £22 on the website. I think I paid $20 for it, but I think he's put his prices up since then, so fine, £22 for a sock set. That's really not bad. And what was the other thing I was going to say about it? I was a little bit worried I wasn't going to have enough of the green. So I've knit these for Christian. As you can see, they are quite large. This sock blocker fits my feet and it's got space at the end. Christian's got big feet. But I was a bit worried that I wouldn't have enough of the green to do heels, toes and cuffs on both. But I've weighed it when I've finished and I've got 12 grams left, so I do have enough. Again, I've not cast on the second one of these yet, but I'm going to do very shortly. It's one of my things that I want to achieve this week. But yeah, if you're looking for something that is sort of vanilla plus, that isn't just quite a vanilla sock, but is very easily memorisable and creates something really quite effective, I really do like this Slip It Simple pattern. And it's free, which is also nice. It is written for DPNs, I think. So there are references to like knit this over, knit your heel over needle 2, needle 2, who's Neil? Knit your heel over needle 2, and if you've got it on something like short circulars, like I do all mine on 2.5mm short circular needles. I should have said that on this one as well. It was a 72 stitch sock on 2.5mm needles. You just need to be aware of that so that you know how many stitches you need to knit your heel over and things like that. So that is the second half finished object. Everything else we have to talk about is whips. So I'm going to take a drink of coffee and we'll get into the whips. I fully thought this was going to be a shorter episode, but it's 35 minutes in and I'm still waffling on. I can't do short. So you haven't seen this for, I didn't show it last week, but you have seen it before. This is my Reveries Tee by Hannah Knotwell of Herbgarden Knitwear. This is a test knit for Hannah. It's really not in the easiest place to show. And it's not made massive... Okay. It's not going to look massively different than it did when I showed it the last time because I'm working on the yoke, so I'm just basically keeping going and adding stitches to it. But I wanted to mention it because it's going to have quite a lot of work on it in the next week. So this is a summer pattern that's currently in testing. I think it finishes in June, July time, something like that. So it's going to be coming out this summer. It is a fairly simple stockinette pattern, but it's got these cabling details around the rib. It's got quite a deep rib around the neck, and then it's got these cabling details and eyelet details at the bottom of the rib, and it has the same on the bottom hem and I think the sleeves as well. Hannah's designs are really size inclusive, so this is on 3mm needles, which I think is the recommended size. I'm knitting a size 12, which is for 52-inch bust. This goes from a size 1, which is 29.75 inches, all the way up to 64.25 inches, which is a size 18. So there is a massive size range in this, and not a massive gap between the sizes. So you can really find one that fits you, and it's got a recommended 1.25 to 2.25. Yeah, 1.25 to 2.25 inches of recommended positive ease, which is why I'm knitting the 52-inch size, because I have a 50-inch bust, so it should be around 2 inches of positive ease. This is recommended to be knit in Knitting for Olive pure silk. I've never knit with that. It's not super budget friendly. I do have a little bit of it in stash, which I'm going to make something with hopefully this summer. But the amount that I would have needed for this would have cost, I think, probably about 60, 70, 80 pounds. And for me, that's just not, I wouldn't pay that much for a t-shirt normally. So I searched for an alternative, and I talked about this yarn the other time, and I found this Fantasy Yarns cotton and bamboo blend. Let me show you the logo. This is a 50% bamboo, 50% cotton blend, and it's a massive cake. This is in the shade Lilac. You buy it by the metre, so it comes in 500 metres, 1,000 metres or 1,500 metres. I needed 1,500 metres for this, so I've bought the 1,500 metres. They do solids, they do ombres, and they do variegated as well. They also do merino acrylic and cotton acrylic cones, so they have cakes. And I feel like it was really quite cost effective. I think it was about £25 plus shipping for this massive cake of yarn. I'm pulling from the centre. I really enjoyed knitting with this. I talked about this last time. I have to pay attention a little bit because it's quite splitty. So I can't just knit mindlessly. I have to make sure I'm not splitting the yarn. But it's got so much drape to it. I really want to get this to the point where I'm splitting for the yoke, because you'll be able to see better just how little structure there is in this and how much drape. It's really hard to show. But it's extremely soft. It comes in a lot of lovely colours. And it blocked very nicely as well. So this is going to be really getting some work on it in the next couple of weeks, because I've got quite a lot of increases to do until I finish the yoke, and then I've got the body to do, and it's on 3mm needles. So it's going to take me a while, and I don't want a crop sweater. So that's the progress I've made. I've probably done, since you last saw it, I think I was up here. So I have done quite a lot, but it does just look the same. It's just a circle as it is. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot more of this. This is going to get a lot of time over the next couple of weeks. The next one to talk about is, I'm just going to stretch my leg out because it's gone dead. Oh God, properly dead. The next one to talk about, move this out of the way, is my summer evening sweater, which was a test knit, which the test is now finished. This was a test knit for Lauren of work.knits. I love her patterns. You'll have noticed I mention her a lot. I love her patterns. I think her podcast is fab as well. So I highly recommend her patterns if you want to have a look at them. This has now been released. This came out yesterday. And this is a fairly simple stockinette sweater. However, it is not a simple construction. It is a very interesting construction. And it is... Okay, let me start from the beginning. So the way Lauren's done this is Lauren's first garment pattern. And the way she's done it is she's self-drafted this herself to make something that fits her really well. And she's then turned that into a pattern. So the way that you do this is you cast on at the neckline, you go back and add an I-cord in afterwards, so you've got no ribbon or anything like that at the front. You knit circular to begin with, and you do a load of circular increases. You then knit straight for a portion, and you then do some raglan increases. So it's a combination of circular, drop shoulder, and raglan. And it looks bizarre when you look at it. It really does. I said this in the last episode. I've started working on my sleeve. So it's like, I mean, it doesn't look like any sweater you've ever seen before. But I'm going to put this on and show you. Because when you put it on, it comes to life. So let me figure out which one's my front. Yeah, that one. Okay. So this looks really weird with one sleeve. And it is pulling that side strangely because I haven't got a sleeve on it. So just bear with that. Let me pull you down a little bit so you can see a bit better. So this is where we're at, and this is how it's fitting. Look how nicely that fits. Now I've got the sleeve picked up, you can really see how this fits, and it fits really nicely. It will fit a bit closer into my sleeve once it's actually blocked and done. I'm trying really hard not to pull it too far up my arm because it's coming very close to pulling stitches off the needles. But it just sits in my underarm really, really nicely and has a really nice fit on it. It will also fit better when I've got this on it, but it's I can't get over the fit on this. So Lauren has made this so there are standard sizes. It comes in size A, which is a 28-inch bust. I'm going to come a little bit further back up so you can see my face instead of me just... That's better. So Lauren has done this in two different ways. You can knit this in two different ways. There are standard sizes. So this goes from a size A, which is 28 inches, all the way up to a size W, which is 72 inches. It is massively inclusive. Massively, massively inclusive. And what makes it even more so is Lauren has also done at the end of it, you can either knit a straight size or you can use a formula that she's provided you at the end to take your own measurements and work out your stitch counts that you need, which is what I've done. And this is going to be, I think, possibly the best fitting sweater I have ever knitted. Lauren's just made a version of this that's a summer top as well, and I'm seriously tempted after I've done this because that fit, it fits really nicely. I love how the neck's sitting as well. The neck's not pulling too much anywhere. I keep doing that because I've got one sleeve and not the other. It's pulling it over one side. But I'm really pleased with how this is fitting so far. I'm knitting this in a single strand of Uppingham yarns. What is it? 100% Shetland type wool, fine 4-ply. You get, this was 500 grams. I paid £17.57 for it. The price has gone up again a little bit. It's now £19.50 on the website, but it's a 500 gram cone of yarn. And it doesn't say the yardage, but it is a very fine 4-ply. I think you would get so much out of this. This is knit on 3.75mm needles, and I think is an immensely versatile and immensely well-fitting pattern that you could really make to be your own. You could do colour work on it, you could do lace, you could do it short sleeve, long sleeve, whatever. Like I said, it's out now. It came out yesterday. I can't recommend this highly enough. Despite the fact that the test knit is now done, I keep working on this because I really, really want to wear this because it's going to fit me so nicely. I can't wait to see how this actually fully fits when it's done. So I'm going to keep cracking on the sleeve. I'm not very good with I-cords. I'm not very good with I-cords. It's the reason that I put off doing this for ages, because I'm really not very good at it. So I've tried about 3 times to do an I-cord to sort the neck out. I'm not very good at it. It's not turning out right at all. I have a cordsmith as well. This is the worst thing. I have a cordsmith, so I could do it with the cordsmith, and that's what I've tried, but it still isn't working. So what I think I might do, I will see how I get on, because it has I-cord trims everywhere. It's got I-cord trim at the bottom, I-cord trim on the neck and on the sleeves. If I can't make it work, I don't have the patience to go round and do an applied I-cord by hand. So if I can't make it work, what I will probably do is probably add some ribbon or something like that to it instead. But I would like to try and make the I-cord work if I can at all possible. So that's where we're at with that one. Progressing really nicely, and can't wait to see how this is going to fit when it's done. That's better. Yeah, so that is the summer's evening sweater by work.knits. It was released yesterday. I would, even if you're not sure about it, go check it out on Ravelry, give it a like, give it a favourite, give it a boost. She's a relatively new designer, and I'm sure she'll appreciate any love that you can give it. Okay, so one more knitted whip to talk about. A couple of acquisitions and a cross stitch to catch you up on. So this is, you haven't seen this actually, this is a completely new whip, and it's extremely tangled. Give me a minute. Whilst I'm detangling it, this is another one of the ones that I spoke about that I had signed up for, and this was the one that I'd swatched for, but I hadn't started working on. So this is my penultimate test knit that I need to work on. This one is due in about 9 weeks' time. I think it's got quite a while on it. And this is in a really awkward place to show you. But I will have a go. So this is a test knit for Celine Phaeton. I mentioned her briefly a minute ago when I was saying there are certain designers that I love to test for. This is my 3rd test for Celine, and this is one of her summer tops. So this should be on, the front should be on hold. And it's not on hold for a couple of reasons. One, it's on hold because I'm lazy. I don't like putting things on hold and taking them off if I can avoid it. I like to just leave things on the needles, which is exactly what I've done. But the other thing is, this is knit in cotton, or I'm knitting this in cotton, and I have found before that if I put things on hold and put it back on the needles in cotton, it doesn't. Don't bark, please. There's nobody here. I don't need to worry about it. Oh, what, another making me jump like last time. You okay? Can you shush? I feel like she's gonna any minute. I'm on edge now. Yeah, cotton isn't like wool, or in my experience, cotton isn't like wool where it will even out with blocking. Cotton will sometimes leave you with a bit of a wobbly row where you put it back on hold. So I've tried to avoid that, but there is no getting away from the fact that the main reason is I am lazy. I will put a picture up on screen of what this is going to look like when it's done, because like I say, at this point it is quite difficult to show you, but this is the Wicker Dreams top that Celine is currently testing. Let me just show you the texture a bit closer. God, it's really hard to show. Oh my God. So this is the wicker stitch that gives it its name, and then this is some nice stockinette at the bottom. This is the front, or one of the fronts. So these two, it's essentially going to sit sort of, looks like the world's smallest bikini, doesn't it? Basically, you start in the centre front, you knit down one centre back, you knit down one front, you go back and you knit down your other front, and then you join in the middle, which I've done. And then you go back and you start working your back, which is what I'm on at the moment. You can see more of that lovely wicker stitch texture there. This is going to be a really nice little summer top, I think, which is why I wanted to sign up to test knit it. I also really love the wicker stitch. I think it looks really, really lovely and really impressive. As always with Celine's patterns, it is immensely well written. It very much is as quite often with Celine's patterns, Celine Phaeton's patterns, it is kind of a trust the process. You just have to read the instructions, read them well, because they are strange, some of them, but just trust the process. You'll be doing strange short rows, you'll be doing turns that you're not expecting to do. It works. It all works. It's immensely well written. It works perfectly well. The numbers are all correct. I don't think I've ever had anything on Celine's patterns where I've had to go, Celine, there's an issue here. It's just, yeah, it's working out really, really well. So this was the recommended yarn for this is Kelborn Woolens Mojave. So Celine is, I'm pretty certain she's from Canada. So quite often, or sometimes, the recommended yarn she uses are very different than what we can access in the UK. And Kelborn Woolens, unfortunately, is not super accessible in the UK. I know some of their Scout and their Camper bases you can get hold of, but I couldn't find anywhere I could get Mojave. Mojave is a 60% Pima cotton and 40% linen sport weight yarn. Even if I could access it, it's not super budget friendly. So it comes in 50 gram skeins, which are 169 meters per 50 grams. And recommended in the pattern was I would need 8 of those, and I could find it for $11. Obviously, I'd need to pay shipping as well. But for 8 skeins at $11, you're talking $88, which is about £60 in the UK, I think, off the top of my head, maybe slightly more than that. So wouldn't have been the most cost effective. So I chose to use a different yarn, and I went with Drops Saffron in the end in the shade Red Clay. Now, Drops Saffron is it says it's a fingering weight, or 4-ply, sorry, 4-ply cotton, 100% cotton. But the yardage is really similar. So the Kelborn Woolens Mojave was 50 grams is 169 meters, and the Drops Saffron is 50 grams is 160 meters. So very, very similar. Actually slightly thicker than the Mojave. Is that right? Have I worked that out right? If you get 9 extra meters per 50 grams, it's thinner. Yeah. So this is thicker. So I ordered some and swatched when it came, and I hit gauge perfectly fine. So that's what I've gone ahead and used. Drops Saffron obviously comes in a really wide range of colours, which is fantastic. It is 100% cotton, isn't it? Yeah, 100% cotton, and really cost effective. So this is £1.30 per 50 gram ball. So I think I got 8 of them, but it's only cost me like £10, a bit over £10 plus postage. So very, very cost effective, and I've really enjoyed working with it. Actually, it is a little bit splitty, but cotton does tend to be, and part of that is because you're doing twisted stitches and things, obviously, for the wicker stitch. So that tends to sometimes I just catch a little bit, but it's been really nice to work with. It hasn't been dry at all. It blocks nicely when I block the swatch. We'll see what it's like in a full garment, but yeah, so far really rated it. I'm knitting this on 4mm needles, which was the recommended size, and I got gauge with the recommended size. I am knitting size 6, which is a 50-inch bust, recommended 50-inch bust, and it's recommended with with negative ease. And there it goes from size 1, which is a 30-inch bust, up to size 10, which is a 66-inch bust. So again, fully size inclusive. I've really enjoyed working on this. I have had to tink back a few bits, and the reason I've had to tink back is because I didn't read the pattern right, or because I just got the wicker stitch out of line. So if you do end up knitting this when it comes out, pay attention to the pattern, just read and make sure you're doing your own size, because that's where I went wrong on the other one. But very highly enjoying this. So that is my other summer knit. The other summer knit that I have on the needles is the Mika Tee. I haven't done much on that this week, purely because I wanted to work on my Reveries, and they're both on the same size needles. And I had one. They're both on my interchangeable needle set. They're both on the cords from that, and I only have one 3mm tip. One set of 3mm tips. So I switched them back across to the Reveries because I really wanted to work on that. But I have ordered myself another pair of 3mm tips for my interchangeable set. I use the Knit Pro Mindful collection. So I ordered myself a new set of 3mm tips, which came yesterday, and I've got them back on the Mika. So that will probably get some more work this week as well. But I am going to be focusing on my Reveries because that has a deadline, whereas the Mika doesn't. And the Wicker Dream, because I'm really enjoying that. Really enjoying that. I have a couple of bits of acquisitions. These were mainly off the back of me knitting these socks. I enjoyed them so much that I wanted some other mini skeins to make some more, basically. So first off, I went back and bought myself another mystery mini skein bundle from Cheshire Yarns Hand-Dyed, which is beautiful. Very different to the last ones that I got, which is great. The only one I'm not happy about that I won't use in the socks is this one at the back, which is a really sort of creamy colour with some purple flecks and specks, which is lovely. But if I'm using a creamy main colour, it doesn't really go. It won't have enough contrast. So I'll probably just use those 4 and rotate between those 4, and this will go in the blanket. I love Cheshire Yarns hand dyed. Their stuff is so, I mean, look at that pink. It's proper neon and gorgeous. And this one is also lovely. I don't know if this is a self-striping, so we'll see, but there's some pinks, some blues, some purples, some greens, some yellows. Really, really nice. And I also went on Ravelry and had a look at some destashes. And I picked a little bit up from there. So I got this little mini skein set. Unfortunately, I don't think you can get this anymore. So I think this was a Christmas colourway from, I think it said on Ravelry 2022. So a couple of years back. This is from Giddy Yarns, who I have never used their yarns before, but this colour is, they are still dyeing. They do still have a website. And this is the colourway Far Too Festive. So yeah, it is quite a festive colourway or festive combo. These are little 20 gram minis, 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And again, I thought these in sock form would look really lovely. And any that I don't use in the socks will go into my hexie blanket, which is still plugging away in the background. So they were the 2 sort of acquisitions I got. This is the first time I've ever purchased anything from a D-stash on Ravelry, but I may well do that again in future because it was really easy and nice. And it's nice to not be, I'm still consuming, but I'm not consuming new, if that makes sense. It's almost like thrifting, isn't it? I'm consuming something that somebody else no longer wants and I can potentially give a good home. So they were my acquisitions this week. Oh, I wanted to really briefly mention, my whip, sorry, my cross stitch. I talked about this last week. This is the Lovers Tarot cross stitch kit from Innocent Bones. I've made some really good progress on this week. So this is where we're at. You can really start to see the design coming out a bit now. I'll pop up a picture of what the design should look like. In fact, that's what the design should look like, and this is where we're at with it. I've been really enjoying this still. I've been really enjoying just having a little bit of something different to work on, and really seeing the design sort of come out has been really fun. So yeah, very much going to keep plugging away with that. And there's a bit of thread there to put away. So a little bit of sort of life chat, I guess, and plans for the next couple of weeks. I would really like, by the time I film the next time, to have cast on both of the second socks for both of these. At least cast on. I'd like to have made some progress, but I know once I've cast them on, don't they look good together actually? I know once I've cast them on, I will make some progress on them. I want to work on them. So I just need to get them cast on, and I don't want to leave it any longer than the next time I film, because I know if I leave it too far, it will languish and I won't work on them. So that is very much a essential really for the next time I'm filming. I also would like to, these two are a bit more adventurous. I'd like to get through the yoke on this if I can. I have quite a lot of rounds of increases to do. Quite a lot of increase rounds to do. And then there's several rounds in between. You knit sort of upwards of 10 rounds in between the increase rounds. So I have got quite a lot of this to do. If I sort of hold it up against myself, you can see where I'm at on the yoke. I've got a considerable amount left to do. But yeah, I'm really hoping to put in some really dedicated time into this the next couple of weeks and get this in a really good place, and ideally have it to a point where I can try it on for you next time. And even more ambitious, I'd like to maybe finish this. It doesn't look like much now, but you'll have seen from the pictures that I've put up that it's a sleeveless top. And what I need to do basically is work down the back panel, which I'm already on. And I'm about a quarter of the way through the wicker stitch on that. I've got this all twisted now. About a quarter of the way through the wicker stitch part of that. And then there's some stockinette, and I join in the round, and then it's a stockinette body with some bust shaping until I get to the hem, which is then some more wicker stitch. And I've seen people in the test knit group finishing this really quickly. The reason I'd like to finish it for the next time is I'm going to actually, do you know what, while we chat, I'm going to pick up this and I'm going to do a bit of knitting on it. We are going on a very short we're going on a small local holiday in about 2 weeks' time. A week tomorrow. Yeah, a week tomorrow we go. We have some annual leave booked, and we have booked a lovely little cottage in on the North Yorkshire coast for 5 nights. We're taking the dogs, and it should just be a really nice, relaxed break. We have both bought some new books to read while we're out there. I will be taking a little bit of knitting, but not too much. There was not going to be massive amounts of, there'll be some day trips, but for the most part, we'll probably just chill out in the cottage and rest and relax and have a bit of downtime. And it would be really nice to be able to take that with me, because if the weather is anything like it is today, it'd be perfect to wear when we're there. So that's why I'd like to get it finished. In terms of life update in general, I'm very much looking forward to that annual leave. I mentioned last week I was travelling a lot for work, and I mentioned earlier in the episode I was saying about how 48 hours I had no knitting time, but it really wiped me out. So I travelled on the Wednesday and Thursday of whatever week it was to Bristol for work, which is where one of our offices is, and that takes it out of me in and of itself, because that is a 3-hour 40-minute drive from here, something like that. Oh, sorry, but 3 hours something, but in traffic it's more than that. It's and I do always hit traffic because I have to go past Birmingham and down the M5. I always hit traffic. I stay overnight, which is nice to have a break, but the next day is very long, because it means I usually don't get back to, I think I got back at about 8:30 in the evening. So basically 8 and went to bed, and then had the Friday at work, had the weekend at home, and had to wake up on the Monday morning to go to the airport, but the flight was very early. So I was up and awake at 2:30 in the morning to go to Birmingham airport and catch the flight, to pick my colleague up on the way. And then we arrived in Paris in the early hours of the morning. About 9 o'clock. We had 2 days in the office, and then our flight back was late on the Tuesday. So I didn't, because I was the designated driver and I dropped my colleague off at home, and then I came back to our house. I got in at midnight on Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning. So it was a very, very full-on couple of days, and I was absolutely exhausted. I thought a good night's sleep would sort me out, but it took till the end of the week, really, before I properly caught up. And I mentioned last time that work's been really busy. Work is still busy. Thankfully, work has quietened down a little bit. It's still very busy, but everything has been progressed a bit that needed to be. Everything has moved forward. And life outside of work has been less busy, because, I've not been travelling, and we've not had, we had the washer we had to replace the other week. The dogs had to go to the vets to get some tablets that they needed, or that he needed. It has all calmed down a bit. But we are both very, very ready for some time together to just rest and relax and recover a little bit. I feel like I've not had much knitting time, even though I only had 48 hours out, but I feel like it really did impact on my knitting time for the rest of the week. So I'm quite surprised I've got as much done as I have. But it's nice to get back into what feels like some sort of more rhythm of normality now. And I'm very much looking forward to a week off. We've only got, for the week we've got off, in fact, it's slightly more than a week, because why? Because we've got the week off, and then the Monday that we would go back to work is a bank holiday in the UK, and it's actually my birthday as well. So we will be, we've got sort of I think we've got 10 days off, and 5 nights is on holiday away in the UK. So we've still got another 5 days at home of just chilling, doing bits around the house, hobby, pottering around. So it will be really nice to just have some downtime and just be together and be with the dogs, and not constantly feel like there's a deadline at work or something like that we need to work on. So we're getting to a bit more sense of normality. I am still feeling massively, massively better for having made that decision to step away from test knitting a bit, and to be more sensible with my test knits and my time. I'm feeling much more inspiration to work on projects that aren't test knits. I'm fighting the urge to cast on loads of things. There's a lot of summer knitting patterns that I'd really like to cast on. Quite a lot of them that I have yarn in the stash for. or that I have the pattern for already and I could easily get yarn to make it. So I'm fighting that because I have a lot of stuff on the needles at the moment already. Really what I need to do is once I need to get some of this stuff off the needles so I can cast some other stuff on, basically, is all there is to it. So that is going to be the aim in the next couple of weeks. That's really all there is for the life update. Everything is kind of normal, business as usual around here now, and we're just getting back to some sort of sense of normality and calm and finding our rhythm and time again. That is really everything that I needed to talk to you about today. Wanted to talk to you about today. So I will leave you there. Just a quick reminder again, if you think you might have won the pattern last week and you didn't go and check, go watch that episode. Drop me a like, drop me a subscribe if you enjoyed. It really does help and it really does make me smile to see. And drop me a comment below. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what your favourite summer pattern is, because as we've discussed, I don't really know many summer patterns. So if you have one that you think is fantastic, that you would really like me to, that you'd like me to have a look at, or you'd like to recommend to me, let me know and I'll go check it out below. But with that, I will leave you and let you go and enjoy your weekend or weekday or whenever it is for you. Thank you very much, guys. Lovely to see you again. Hope to speak to you all again soon. Bye.